talking about this for a long time, so we got our staff announcer down today, offstage guy, Jack Parnell. Jack, I think you've been wanting to ask me a few questions, so roll.
I certainly have. Well, obviously, from having worked with you for so many years ago, and first of all, let me say that it is a pleasure and an honor for me to get to interview you.
Oh, thank you.
Because mainly, most people have heard George interview a lot of people. I mean, you've interviewed thousands and thousands and thousands, but nobody has ever interviewed you. Well, let's dig right in. Tell me, if you can, about the very first time you remember even seeing Elvis.
Jack, it was in the 8th grade, Humes High School, 1948. We were in a music class. Miss Mormon was the teacher. It was around Christmas time, and she said, kids, she said, next week, instead of studying about the famous composers and musical notes and stuff, she said, we're going to do Christmas carols. And Elvis raised his hand. I'll never forget it. He was on the left-hand side of the room. I was on the right-hand side of the room. And he said, Miss Mormon, can I bring my guitar to class and sing? There were a few little laughs in the class because it wasn't cool in 1948 for a 12-year-old to bring his guitar to school. She said, sure. Well, lo and behold, he brings his guitar to school. He gets up in front of the class. There again on the left-hand side of the room, I can just see it as clear as day right now, and he sings 2 country songs. One was Cold Icy Fingers, and the other one was he recorded later on called Old Shep. And at that moment on, we bonded, Jack.
Wow. Now, I remember the Old Shep. I didn't remember anything about Cold Icy Fingers. But
old country song.
Well, now, you guys became friends immediately, or were you?
No, it was a slow process, Jack. As we were going through high school, we were in the exact same classes. I became class president at the senior class talent show. We always had a senior class talent show, and Elvis entered, and lo and behold, he won the show. And from that moment on, I thought to myself, you know, maybe this guy's got a shot. You never can tell.
And I know, of course, from having worked with you for so many years at a radio station here in Memphis, WHBQ,
right,
that you and Elvis were extremely close, almost a brotherly closeness, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me some more about your high school days with Elvis.
During high school, Jack, it was typical. Elvis frequently would bring his guitar to school after the 8th grade situation. You know, today the kids, they pierce their ears, the tattoos, they color the hair, and that is a way of standing out, being an individual. Well, Elvis's way was bringing the guitar to school and dressing a little bit different, because he would wear clothes to Humes High that were not being worn by other students. He'd wear a sport coat, he'd turn the collar up, then he'd have a pair of pants, black pants with a white stripe down the side. He would just wear something, not bad, but just something different.
Sideburns.
Sideburns, the guitar. That was his way. We called it a velvet hammer. He was making himself known, but in a nice, soft way.
What did you feel like, and how did you and he talk to each other when he first started recording then?
Well, what happened, Jack, I was already working in radio, a little station in Arkansas, KOSC in Osceola. And Sam Phillips had this deal where, you know, Elvis came in to make a record supposedly for his mom. Sam cuts the disc, the demo, takes it to Dewey Phillips. I'm coming in from Arkansas for the weekend. Sam had been up that night before with Dewey at HBQ in the old Chisca Hotel. And I walk in the studios, and Dewey says, come here, GK. I said, yeah, Dewey. He said, I want you to hear something. And he takes on in one of the control rooms, and he puts his hand over the label where I can't see the record, and he plays That's All Right, Little Mama. And he says, who is that? I said, well, Dewey, I don't know who that is. I've never heard that before. He said, well, you should know. You went to high school with him. And I said, you mean Elvis has got a record out? He said, yeah, Sam brought it up last night. I said, what happened? He said, tremendous reaction, had to play it 7 times. I think the kid could be a star. And I said, wow. And so I said, so I got in touch with Elvis, and I told him about it. I took a couple of copies back to Osceola, and things started happening so quick, it was crazy.
Well, it did, like a whirlwind, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I had always heard that Elvis was completely overwhelmed by the fact that all of this was happening to him, even to the point at which he kept saying, you know, I'm afraid I'm going to wake up and this is going to be a bad dream or something. Did he ever express any of that?
Yes, he did. It's funny she mentioned that, Jack. One night we're driving up to Graceland, and he stopped halfway in the driveway. I said, what's wrong, Elvis? He said, nothing's wrong. He said, GK, so look at that house up there. I said, yeah, Elvis, that's Graceland, beautiful home. He said, look at these grounds. He said, look at this new car. He was in a brand new Lincoln Mark II. I said, yeah, Elvis. He said, GK, he said, I can't believe this is happening to me.
Wow.
He said, man, I hope I never wake up. Hope it's not a dream. I said, Elvis, it's not a dream. Come on, let's go up here and rock and roll, man. I didn't want to hear all that. I wanted to get up there and party, you know. But no, what he was saying was that he was alluding to exactly what you said. It was happening so fast that he couldn't believe it himself almost.
In Elvis' later years, of course, obviously you and he stayed in very good close touch. In fact, you were the best man at his wedding, weren't you?
No. That's a little bit of a misconception. He was the best man at my wedding. I was a groomsman at his wedding.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was one of 14 people at his actual wedding. He called me, invited me to come out, and you were over at Q, and I think you were PD or something. I couldn't give you the story.
Yeah, right.
But I said, I got to go to California. Elvis wants me. What's it about? Oh, it's personal. I don't know. But I knew what it was about.
Yeah.
And then when it exploded worldwide, you guys said, GK, why didn't you tell us? You had the news story of the year. I said, I couldn't tell. I gave Elvis my word.
Secrecy.
But I was one of the 14 people at his wedding, and then after that happened, a while later, he called me once and said, GK, he said, we're all married now and you're not. I said, yeah, Elvis, I'm aware. He said, tell you what I'll do. I said, what, Elvis? He said, if you will get married, I will be your mess band and I will pay for your entire wedding. You'll get married in my suite in Las Vegas. I said, Elvis, you got a deal, man.
That's some friend for you.
So that happened, and he came through with his word, and just wonderful memories.
Let me backtrack for just a couple of seconds here, because I think I remember that you did some emceeing of some of his early shows, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Jackie appeared on the back of a flatbed truck behind Cat's Drugstore at Lamar Way Shopping Center, and I was out there. The agency had hired me to be the DJ for the day, and I knew Elvis was coming, so when he and Scotty, it was just he and Scotty and Bill, DJ wasn't a part of the group at that time. They showed up, Elvis's eyes got he saw somebody familiar.
Sure.
And I gave him a great intro, and it was a lot of fun. They said that I was one of the few guys in America that introduced Elvis and the Beatles, because I also introduced the Beatles at the Coliseum, and Elvis behind old Cat's Drugstore. Jack, thanks so much for coming down.
GK, it was my pleasure.
We'll do this again. This is fun. Our guest, MC or interviewer, I guess you could say, Jack Parnell with George Klein, Memphis Sounds. Opening our show, Elvis, a guitar player. He was the first sideman selected to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, guitar great Scotty Moore.